Welcome to Lesson 3 of Music Theory Basics for the Advancing Guitarist. In Lesson 2, we discussed major and minor intervals, perfect fourths and fifths, and exercise on the guitar using double stops and thirds and sixths and power chords. In this lesson, we are going to look at how major scales are formed, degrees of the scale, how to figure out a major scale from any note, movable fingerings for major scales, and we're going to have you write out the major scales in all 12 keys for your homework. And once again, we're going to be back at the piano, but only because it's very visual for learning the concepts. We are not going to do much with it today. So our question is, how are major scales built? That's what we're going to deal with first. If you look at the diagram here, we have a keyboard going an octave from C to a C. And underneath the red letters there, you'll see a little V-shaped and a little curve-shaped little object. And that indicates the number of half steps or whole steps from one note to the next. So from C to D would be a whole step, D to E would be a whole step. The half step symbol is the little curve thing underneath. From E to F would be a half step, from F to G is a whole step, G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, and from B to C, that's that naturally occurring half step. Now, the major scales are the do, re, mi scales. If you heard the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that would be your do, re, mi scales. That's a major scale. They follow a specific pattern of whole steps and half steps. So the pattern that you want to commit to memory is 2 whole steps, a half step, 3 wholes, and a half. So 2 wholes and a half, 3 wholes and a half. You want to have that in here because it's going to help you with the next set of exercises that we will do. Because this scale begins on C, we're going to call this the C major scale. Notice that there are no sharps or flats in this scale. That's why we're going to start with it, because it's the simplest, and then we're going to add that in as we go. So each note of the scale is called a degree, like a degree in temperature on a thermometer. Each scale has a degree where the C, in this case, would be the 1, the D would be the 2, the E would be the 3, the F would be the 4, the G would be the 5, and so on. So you get the idea, but it's called degrees of the scale. That's a term that we'll use throughout this lesson. Now, as we said, we are working with the C major scale because the first note in the scale, the root note of the scale, is C. You'll notice that we've added in above the letter names of the notes, we've added in some Roman numerals in uppercase and lowercase. The difference between the uppercase and the lowercase we will get to at a different time, but you just want to remember that the C is the 1, the D is the 2, and you go across up to the 7, which would be B, and that is indicated in Roman numerals. Now, an interesting little factoid that you can use to impress your friends so they'll know how smart you are with all your music theory stuff. The degrees of the scale also have names. The 1 is called the tonic, or the root of the scale. The 2 is the supertonic. 3 is the mediant. 4 is the subdominant. 5 is the dominant. The 7 is called the submediant, and the 7th is called the leading tone. So you learn those and you can really impress your friends, right? So we just did a C scale, and in the C scale there's no flats or sharps. But what if we want to start a major scale on a different note? Let's say in this case we're going to try G, which would make a G major scale. Now if you notice in the diagram, we moved that little block over from G to G, and we moved our little half step and whole step diagram along with it. So we're going to look now from G to A, that would be a whole step. A to B is a whole step, and B to C is one of those naturally occurring half steps. So that works great right here. So far, so good. Now we go C to D, that would be a whole step. D to E is a whole step, but now we run into a problem. E to F is one of those naturally occurring half steps. To follow the pattern of the major scale, we have to make an alteration here. Otherwise, it just won't sound right. So what we have to do, we need to create a whole step between E and F, and on the other side, right now we have an F to G, that's a whole step, but we need to reduce that to a half step. Well, there's an easy way to do that. See the little caution sign above the F? If we take that F and we make that an F sharp, if we raise that one little half step, all of a sudden from E to F sharp, that is a whole step. And F sharp to G is a half step. So by putting one sharp in that scale from G to G on the F, that's going to give us the proper tone so our do, re, mi scale will sound right. Try it on your guitar, play the G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and don't change that F to an F sharp. Listen to what it sounds like. Then play it again with the F sharp and you'll see it sounds correct. So in the G scale, we had to add a sharp to the sequence of the notes in order to make the scale sound right. In order to preserve that whole step, half, whole step, half pattern. Okay, so let's try it with an F. Okay, we're going to drop down here and we've moved a little bracket over there to go from F to F, and we moved our little triangles and our little scoop over to help with the pattern. So if we go from F to G, whole step, that's good. G to A is a whole step. A to B, well, that's a whole step. So in this case, and if you look from B to C, that's one of those naturally occurring half steps, but we need a whole step there. So we need to switch something around. So what can we do? We can look from A to B, we need that to be a half step. So how about we lower that B to B flat? If we do that, that gives us a half step, and on the other side, it corrects the problem there with the B to C, and that makes that B flat to C as a whole step. That's a 2-fret jump. So now we go C to D, that's a whole step, that's good. D to E is a whole step, and E to F is one of those naturally occurring half steps, so we don't have to do anything there. So by adding a flat on the B, by lowering it 1/2 step, we correct the sequence and preserve the sequence of the pattern of the major scale. So an F major scale would have a B flat in it. All right, so let's learn a 1-octave C major scale in what's called closed position. In other words, we're not going to use any open strings at all. By doing this, we're going to make a pattern that becomes movable. So the pattern it shows you on the screen, we're going to start on the 2nd finger of our fretting hand on the 3rd fret, 5th string. So that's a C. So we're going to play 2, 4, that's C, D. The next string, 1, 2, 4, that's E, F, G. The next string, A, B, that's 2 and 4, and the 4th finger goes to C at the top. So that's a basic C major scale. The fingerings of these are very important. Use the correct fingers as you play these. This way, each finger acts kind of as a placeholder, almost like doing math, where you have columns that you put your 1s and 10s in. Okay, so anything on the 3rd fret, you're going to play with the 2nd finger in this case. Anything on the 2nd fret, you're going to play with the 1st finger. So you're making a little 4-fret box that is movable. Practice going up and down. Nice and slow, just get it under your fingers so you can play it comfortably and confidently. One of the things I recommend that you do as you play, as I call it, say it, play it. So as you play the scale, say the names of the notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That way your fingers learn the notes and the positions that they are in. Think of the degrees of the scale as you play them. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the 8 is the octave. That's the same as the 1. Play the root note, and then play another degree of the scale and listen to the intervals. C to E would be a 3rd. C, F would be a 4th. C to G would be a 5th. Get those sounds in your ears so you begin to anticipate when you listen to a song how far your fingers have to move for the jump. It'll start to feel familiar to you with practice. Now, because this is a closed fingering, it becomes movable. You can move this pattern to another string or another fret, and you can make a major scale beginning on whatever note you choose. In this exercise, we're going to take the pattern you just played and we're going to move it up a string, where it's going to start on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. That note is G, so we're going to make a G major scale. So we'll play it G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Notice how the same fingering works in both places. Some guitarists call these grips, these particular shapes that just lay underneath your fingers, and it saves you from having to think about it every time you play. It's actually pretty handy. If you play a piano, if you play a horn, you have to learn completely different fingerings for a major scale or a minor scale or whatever kind of scale you learn for each key. On the guitar, we can just move to a different place and play the same pattern, at least on the top 4 strings, and it's going to work because of the way those top 4 strings are tuned. The guitar is a chromatic grid, and so strings 3 through 6, they're tuned in fourths. That's what makes that pattern possible. So you can use this scale all over the neck on these first 4 strings. In this case, because it starts on a G, let me turn around so the camera's there. I don't have to think in my brain and make that an F sharp. The fingering is going to take care of it for me. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. The fingering does all the thinking for me. If I want to do this on let's take it up 2 frets to A, the same exact fingering. That's an A scale. A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. B flat. So I can play the scales all over the place with that one pattern. So you can start practicing moving those around. Here's some examples that you can try on your own. A major, same fingering, start at the 5th fret. B major, 7th fret. D major, switch strings, 5th fret. E flat major, start at the 6th fret of the 5th string. Same fingering, it works great all over the place. Do your say it, play it as you memorize the fingerboard. Now, as is true with many things, if there's no pain, there's no gain. And so I have an assignment for you. You want to write out the scales. I've given you 3 of them so far, C, G, and F. You want to write them out the way we did on the diagram here. Write the C to C with all the notes in between. Then draw your little diagram with your V and your little scoop in the correct pattern. 2 whole steps, half step. 3 whole steps, half step. Write your whole letters of the alphabet underneath there, and then what you're going to do is you'll make the adjustments with flats and sharps in order to make the scales sound right. Just go through the musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the sharps and flats between them. Remember, there aren't sharps between B and C and E and F. So you could do an A sharp, which is the same thing as B flat, B, C, C sharp, which is the same thing as D flat. You can go right on through and do all 12 keys. There are 12 keys. The easy way to keep track of it, there's 12 frets from here to here on the guitar where the double dots are. That's your 12 half steps. There's a key for each one of those. So to wrap up this lesson, you're going to do say it, play it with the major scale fingerings, beginning with the roots on the 6th and 5th strings. You're going to explore the scale fingerings all over the neck. Make sure you say the names of the notes as you play them and listen to the degrees of the scale and compare them. Then you're going to write out all 12 keys using the pattern that I showed you for the major scales. You eventually want to commit these to memory, but once you have them written down, it'll work well for you to help you with the memorization. Why do you need to write them down? Not do them on a computer or something like that. The process of writing, we know from different psychological studies, and that basically the process of taking notes by writing helps you embed it into memory, into short-term and long-term memory better. So if you draw these diagrams out, you're creating a schema in your brain that's going to help you pull these out when you need them when you're playing. it's tough. It's hard to do. Music theory does demand a little bit of laborious stuff, but once you have it down, nobody could ever take it away from you, and you own it, and it's yours forever. So that's my words of encouragement. Just stick with it. You'll get it. All right. Thank you again for watching this lesson. So be sure to take your time, practice conscientiously, do the written work, especially for this lesson. Go to lesson 4 when you have mastered all the skills in this video. Don't take shortcuts. Pay the dues, right, and you'll reap the rewards of doing it. All right, thanks you again for watching. Take care.